Hey guys, my name is Karina. Welcome to my Amazon FBA channel. Today's topic is going to be how to find the perfect supplier to place your order with so they can manufacture it. So when I first started out, I went on Alibaba, and what I did was I literally messaged every single one that was on there with my item, and then I quickly realized that that's probably not the best thing to do, because there are a lot of suppliers that are new, that don't do very many transactions, that have really cheap products, and that will basically end up in you having negative reviews or a delayed order, things like that. So you just want to really make sure that you find a really good supplier. Most of the suppliers are found on Alibaba, especially when you're starting out. There's other places you can look, like Alibaba on India, or even US manufacturers, depending on the product. But if you're just starting out, and if it's a product that's not too complicated, Alibaba is an amazing site. There's literally really good products on there, good suppliers, good factories. I find my suppliers on there. So when I put in a product name, the number one thing I look for, and the two little things I do initially before contacting anyone else, and I'm going to insert photos on here so you guys can see, is I click trade assurance and gold supplier on the Alibaba. There are two check marks you have to click, and this just ensures that you already filter out the people that aren't serious. So trade assurance is a form of payment. So if your supplier doesn't take PayPal or wire transfers, which you don't want to do because you might lose your money, since if you don't trust them yet, you want to make sure you have some kind of protection method. So PayPal automatically gives you protection, especially if it's through your credit card as well. You have those barriers. Something goes wrong, you can request for your credit card to remove the charge, or PayPal to remove the charge if your supplier doesn't finish your order or if it's a faulty order. But trade assurance as well, it gives you a layer of protection for when you're contacting people and when you're making payments. So that's important. And then gold supplier just means that they take it seriously. There's actually a fee they have to pay yearly in order to be a gold supplier, and that just gives them an added bonus to make them look like they're a good factory. I also want to note that on Alibaba there is a difference between factories or a middleman. So they would be an agent that has access to factories, and that's a little bit more difficult to figure out. To me, I haven't had any issues, and especially when you're first starting out, I wouldn't really think too much into it. But a way you can find out is just basically by Googling or by scrolling down to the photos and seeing which, like the photos of their factory, although they could be fake as well. But honestly, if they're on there, I haven't had any problems with people like scamming me or anything, because I always use those barriers, like such as credit card, PayPal, or trade assurance. So usually the difference between an agent trying to connect you with factories is that the prices will be slightly more expensive because the agent does take a fee. But like I said, when you're first starting out, that's not really something to worry about. Just keep that in mind for the future. If you want to get more advanced and you want to maybe deal with a specific agent, or make sure that you only just reach out to factories, it just goes based on your preference. But for right now, just stick to Alibaba and stick to making sure all these check marks are made, and then you shouldn't have a problem. So yeah, trade assurance, gold supplier. And then I also look that they have been in business for at least 2 years. So those are the first initial ones I contact, because for example, if you're looking for products, sometimes there are a lot of factories and a lot of options, and you definitely don't want to be messaging like 20 or 30 people, because I've done that mistake before and it's just too much. There's probably within like 10 or 15 people that you message, there will be a few really good options. But if you just overwhelm yourself and message 30 factories, the prices are going to be relatively the same, and it's not worth your time to be looking through that many messages and to be picking out of 30 when you can pick a good one out of like 15 companies. So yeah, the first thing I do is I look into these parameters, and if they don't match, then I kind of lower my standards and pick for lower ones. But I've never had to do that because there's a lot of options on Alibaba. So the second one, like I said, is that they have been in business for 2 years. There is usually says how many years they've been in business, and that's because that means that they have gone out of their way to pay 2 years in a row to be a gold supplier. They don't just like put in a 1-year fee and then basically scam everyone and leave after a year. So that just tells me that they've been in business for at least 2 years. They're in it for the long haul. They're, a reputable factory. Then another thing that I look for that most people don't pay attention to is their response rate. So also in the corner, you'll see the percentage of people they respond to. Now you can't expect it to be 100%, but I usually filter it. I like to look for 90% and above, and I know there's probably a lot of people that message them not seriously, just spam, and they don't reply to that. So I give that leeway room of 10% or even 80% and above. I like to go for 90%, and then when I see that everything else is met, that they have trade assurance, gold supplier, and they've been in business for a while, then I can deal with a lower percentage of response rate. But usually I like to stick at about 90+%. That means they're serious and they're responsive, things like that. I also like to look at the revenue they do. So depending on the factory, some of them are small and, you know, deal with smaller orders, but factories have done a lot in revenue. You'll see factories that say like $5,000 plus, or you see factories that say $500,000, and you just kind of want to kind of look at the range of the product you're selling and what most factories are doing, and kind of stay in that range. Like if most of the factories of your products are doing $500,000 in transactions, then probably, and most of them are like that, then you probably want to gear towards them. If you see all of them are doing $500,000 in transactions and then there's one that's doing 10,000, that's probably not the one you want to pick. Those, the outliers of transactions, I avoid those just because I know that why are people not picking them? Why are they the ones with the lowest rates of transactions being made? That kind of makes me wary. So I tend to stay away from people with low transaction rates in relatively to what the market is. And then other things, these are the things that you could see right when you click and message them. So before even messaging them, you already know the response rate, whether they're a gold supplier, trade assurance, their response rate, like I mentioned, and then their transactions. But the other things I filter out for is when I message them in a very professional manner, obviously, not like spammy, not one sentence, it's a very intricate, long message. Maybe I'll include a template in a later video of how I message them, but if they don't reply to me with that same business day of 24 hours, depending on what time of the day I message them, but basically if they don't reply to me within 24 hours, I will not choose them, just because that lets me know that they're not serious, especially since I'm reaching out in a very serious and professional way, and I'm putting myself as like a purchasing agent of a big company. And if I'm presenting myself in a really professional manner as a business and they don't take me seriously and they don't respond to me, then I am not going to take them seriously as well. If they don't respond to me initially, if they're not interested in my business, then that lets me know that they will probably not be responsive to me later down the road when I'm actually placing orders and when I'm in crunch time and when it's actually something really important, when my money is invested into them. So that's something I really avoid. If they don't respond to me, I'm out. The last thing is, if they answer my email in a very like DGAF way and they don't answer all of my questions, obviously there's leeway room. Maybe there's a language barrier, sometimes not 100%, but if I kind of can sense that they're answering it just to answer it without actually being interested in my questions and interested in forming a partnership and a business with me, I will weed them out as well. So if I have like a template of list of like 5 to 10 questions and they only answer 1 or 2, then that just signifies that they're not serious. If they just give me like a really short response that's not even super relevant to any of the questions I asked, then I probably won't choose them, because there are other suppliers that answer very diligently and very thoroughly, and you know, it's a conversation and a building of a relationship that kind of adds up. But most of the time, like, I honestly haven't had any bad experiences with suppliers or anyone trying to scam me, or you know, there's been some that just don't really answer that well, and like I said, I just don't pursue it. But every factory that I've done business with have been very respectable, very you know, attentive, and they answer and they bend in several directions to accommodate, which is really, really nice. I've been really fortunate to be dealing with some really awesome factories. So I hope that you guys are able to kind of weed the bad ones out with these little things that I mentioned, and that you find an amazing business partner, not business partner, but an amazing factory to do business with, because it seriously makes the whole process so much easier. Like, you don't have to worry if they tell you a date, you don't have to worry about them not committing to it, or just forgetting about your order, or like scamming you, or wondering if your inventory goes in. Because when you get more into the business and actually have transactions and cash flow going and your inventory being sold and shipped, everything, it can get a little stressful to be with a factory that you're not 100% reliant on, and that you're not sure if when they say that the order comes out on this date, if it's actually gonna come out on that day, and you really want to avoid that, because imagine that's not scalable. If you scale that up and you have like several SKUs and items and you can never rely on your factory, that's super stressful, and that's something you want to avoid. So yeah, just follow these things, see if you can filter them out, and good business to all of you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys in my next video. Have an amazing day.